China returns to a more
titigil ang
Trump's trade in a bid to offset.
A pleasant day to everyone. Today I'll be talking about one of the contemporary issues in the geopolitical arena, that is the East China Sea dispute. To be guided, this is our objective, which is to outline the present geopolitical issues and challenges in the East China Sea. But before we delve into the issues, let's trace back the history of this region. The Diaoyu Islands, known as the Senkaku in Japan, have been disputed since 1895 when Japan annexed them after winning the First Sino-Japanese War. Although Taiwan was ceded under the Treaty of Shimonoseki, the islands were not clearly mentioned. After World War II, China argued that the islands should have been returned under the Cairo and Potsdam Declarations. While Taiwan was handed back, the islands remain in dispute. In the late 1960s, potential oil and gas reserves were discovered near the islands, sparking renewed interest. By the 1970s, both China and Taiwan began formally asserting their claims. Although China and Japan restored diplomatic ties in 1972, they agreed to set the islands' issue aside temporarily. By the mid-2000s, China began expanding its naval and coast guard presence in the area. Then, in 2012, Japan nationalized 3 of the islands, leading to a sharp response from China, which began regular patrols around them. This marked the start of overlapping control in the region. Today, the situation remains tense. China continues to project its maritime power, while Japan scrambles jets and boosts surveillance. The U.S., though neutral on sovereignty, is bound by treaty to support Japan, adding a global layer to this regional conflict.
What are the bases of their disputes? The Diaoyu Senkaku Island, a long-standing dispute between China and Japan. The uninhabited islets are a significant point involving history, its resources, strategic importance, and national identity. So China claimed historical sovereignty from the Ming Dynasty. Japan countered with its 1895 Treaty of Shimonoseki, asserting that no prior Chinese control. So potential oil and gas reserves in the East China Sea have intensified the stakes since the 1960s, with conflicting claims over maritime boundaries fueling the tension. So important fishing grounds surround the islands. While not the primary driver, disputes over fishing rights and vessel activities frequently escalate tensions. So their location within the strategic first island chain and along crucial sea lanes give this island immense importance for regional power and maritime security. So a deep nationalistic sentiments and lingering historical grievances from past conflicts heavily influence each nation's stance, making resolution incredibly challenging. So the Diaoyu Senkaku Island dispute is a multifaceted challenge deeply rooted in history, fueled by potential resources, driven by strategic imperatives, and inflamed by nationalistic passions. Finding a resolution requires navigating this complex web of factors to ensure stability and cooperation in this vital region.
Good day, everyone. This is Nicole Bolivar alongside with Miss Bangit, and we're tasked to deliver the second objective for the presentation East China Sea dispute. Now, for the objective, this is to acknowledge that there is never-ending geopolitical tension in the heartland and rimland. Now, the first topic to be tackled on is why the East China Sea matters. Now, it is very important merely because, firstly, big trade routes go through it. Secondly, it's a key military area. Thirdly, it has available energy resources like oil and gas. Now, this is the picture of East China Sea. Moving on is we have the theories. Heartland theory by Mackinder posits the idea that if you control land, you have the power. While on the other hand, rimline theory by Spikeman posits the idea that if you control the coastal areas, you have the power. Now this is the picture. The red one is we have the heartland and the yellow one is we have the rimland. The second topic to be tackled on is we have the geopolitical context. Now why there's a friction in the East China Sea? Now there is indeed a friction, merely because this is where big powers of interest meet, such as shipping, resources, and military zones. Now moving on is we have this, the key countries and their interest. First, we have China. China wanted to control based on history and needs sea access. Japan, on the other hand, wants to protect trade routes and team up with the US. Thirdly is United States. United States wanted to support allies and wants free sea access and checks China's rise. Now lastly is we have Taiwan and others, not the main players but highly affected. Southeast Asia worries about being caught in a power struggle.
In the vast waters of East China Sea, power meets strategy and ambition fuels tension. Beneath these waters lies a jackpot of energy resources and rich marine biodiversity. But competing claims and exclusive economic zones, or EEZs, are turning this region into a geopolitical minefield. The East China Sea isn't just about borders. It's a busy highway for ships. Every day, cargo ships carrying oil, food, and goods pass through these waters, connecting major economies like China, Japan, and South Korea to the rest of the world. This is also part of the most important reason why these countries fight over this particular sea. The East China Sea lies in the rimland, the coastal edge of Eurasia that Spikeman called the most important area for global power. This region includes China, Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea, all major players in global trade and security. According to Spikeman, whoever controls the rimland can obtain the heartland and dominate global politics. The heartland signifies Central Eurasia, while rimland signifies coastal Eurasia. These are crossroads for trade, energy routes, and military access. Powers that control these areas can influence major parts of Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. The East China Sea is more than a territorial issue. It's a modern example of heartland versus rimland rivalry. It shows how great powers compete for strategic control to shape global politics. And as long as these regions remain vital, the tensions will likely continue.
The Israel-Palestine conflict is one of the most enduring and complex geopolitical issues in the world today. It revolves around a long-standing struggle for land, identity, and sovereignty. Both Israelis and Palestinians claim historical and emotional ties to the same territory, particularly the areas of Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza Strip. For Israelis, the land is the promised homeland, a symbol of survival and the national rebirth after centuries of persecution. For Palestinians, it is the land of their ancestors, taken from them through war, displacement, and occupation. Since the establishment of Israel in 1948, waves of conflict have erupted. Wars, uprisings, and failed peace processes. Over time, the situation has grown more complicated, with Israeli settlement expanding into Palestinian territories and Palestinian factions like Hamas responding with rocket attacks. These tensions have left thousands dead, millions displaced, and generations growing up under fear and uncertainty.
Today, the region faces enormous geopolitical challenges. The Gaza Strip, governed by Hamas, is under a blockade that restricts movement and access to essential resources. In the West Bank, Israel's military presence and growing settlements contribute to everyday tension. Palestine's experience low autonomy, while Israel's worry about security and territorial threats. Both sides claim to be defending themselves, but peace remains out of reach. International players from the United States to the United Nations and nearby Arab nations have tried to mediate, but deep mistrust, political divisions, and conflicting narratives make any resolution difficult. In recent years, attempts at peace talks have stalled and violence has once again escalated, showing how fragile the situation remains.
To really understand the Israel Palestine conflict, we must ask, is this a war over resources or a war against terrorism? In many ways, it is a war over resources: land, water, and the right to self determination. Access to holy sites, borders, and agricultural land and natural gas reserves plays a huge role in the conflict. Control over these resources means control over daily life, and both sides fight for survival in every sense of the word. At the same time, the conflict has become a war against terrorism. Israel responds to rocket attacks, suicide bombings, and cross border threats, often with military force. Palestinians, especially in Gaza, say they are resisting military occupation and systemic injustice. Civilians suffer the most, living in fear, caught between violence and political gridlock. In the end, the conflict is not simply about territory or ideology. It is a struggle shaped by trauma, identity, and history. But more than that, it is a human crisis. Both Israelis and Palestinians are people with hopes, families, and longing for peace. For real progress to happen, both sides must be willing to see each other not as enemies, but as neighbors with shared future side by side.
The Middle East is a region located at the crossroads of Asia, Africa, and Europe. It is often considered the birthplace of civilization, home to ancient cultures and religions such as Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Now, who lives in Middle East? The region is incredibly diverse. Major countries include Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, and the Gulf nations. Its population comprises various ethnic groups such as Arabs, Persian, Turks, Kurds, and others. And they are a mix of religious belief, primarily Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Now, what is New Middle East? The New Middle East refers to a geopolitical concept that envisions a redefined and more stable regional order. It involves effort to promote economic development, political reform, and conflict resolution. Sometimes, it also hints at the shifting alliances and power balances, such as the US and Gulf countries, aiming to foster cooperation and reduce regional conflict. Now, what is geopolitical position in the Middle East? Geopolitically, the Middle East is critical because of its strategic location and vast energy resources, especially oil and natural gas. Countries in the region influence global markets and international politics. The region has seen conflict such as the Arab-Israeli tensions, civil wars in Syria and Yemen, and proxy wars involving global powers, making it a focal point of international interest.
The Middle East faces many problems. First of it is oil, water, and borders. First, oil is a huge factor. The region has some of the largest oil reserves in the world, and oil brings wealth and power. Countries fight over the control of it, and even global orders get involved because oil is so important for energy and money. Water is another major issue. The Middle East is one of the most driest regions on earth, and with a very little water. Countries rely on rivers like Nile, but they all want a bigger share of it, that it leads to tensions and even the threat of war. Scarcity of water makes everything even more difficult. But it's not just about resources. Many of the borders in the Middle East were drawn by the foreign powers during the colonial era without considering the different ethnic and religious groups living there. This has created ongoing disputes and conflicts over land. Some groups, like the ISIS, don't accept these borders and want to redo them to create further own countries. In short, the Middle East issues has come from the fighting over oil, water, land, and deeply held beliefs.
More than just its challenges and resources, deep-seated political conflicts proliferate the region, thereby setting back its unified development. One of the significant conflicts in the Middle East that has expanded from nation to nation is the Arab Spring. In 2010, a street vendor in Tunisia named Mohamed Bouazizi set himself on fire in front of a government office after being publicly humiliated by police over his supposedly unlicensed cart. This act sparked an uprising in the country, toppling down the corrupt regime of Ben Ali in the country. The movement, however, did not end there. Armed with the phones and the media, protesters were able to spread the information across Arab regions, which led for other regimes to fall, such as in Egypt, Libya, and Yemen. The aftermath of protests, however, were not equally beneficial for the working class of Arab countries. Non-state extremists such as ISIS utilized the event to pursue their religious agenda, waging a bloody battle through terrorism. Geopolitically, the Middle East became more polarized and fragmented, and though the initial hope of democracy faded, the Arab Springs event permanently altered the political landscape, reminding the world that power and space in the Middle East are never static.